Okay, let's get serious for a moment. This video is not a tutorial, okay? If you want to see a tutorial, please go and have a look at the 0 to 60 in Microsoft 365. That whole playlist is all about empowering you to administer and manage your Microsoft 365 tenant. This video is a what I have learnt, all right? And I really want to hammer on that because I think that this is going to ruffle a few feathers, and I've noticed it has in LinkedIn as I've posted some milestone achievements in reaching above 99%. I want to just really make known that this is not prescriptive. This does not take into account all different various environments, and I do not believe or am not endorsing that Microsoft Secure Score is the be-all end-all thing to a secure environment. Holistic security is the be-all end-all, employing many different techniques to make sure that you have a full security posture over your full environment and purview over that, as well as, looking into threat hunting and proactive measures. This is one metric along that maturity journey. So please hear me when I say that. Now, before we get into this video, I want to also say that if you are in any way upset or disgruntled, look, feel free to put something in the comments, but just think about the audience and think about how you can help. How can you help other people to grow and develop their skills within this sector? And that is what this whole YouTube channel is about. So I want to share what I've learned in implementing Microsoft Secure Score and achieving over 99%. Defensive insights within a compressed format. Okay, so here we are. Here is the screen of my secure score within my Microsoft 365 tenant for ingest services. You can see the 99.79%, which I am jazzed about, might I say, because it has been a bit of a slog to get here. Not really within this tenant, but in learning Microsoft over the past few years, as well as trying to implement this slowly in previous jobs. In a previous life, I was running an MSP. This is way back when, and sort of just started to get into Microsoft and was managing a few other tenants and had no clue when it came to Secure Score or security posture within Microsoft. Was leveraging third-party solutions, and I think a lot of MSPs will understand that you don't have a lot of time, and so you do end up doing things not the wrong way. You do it quickly and you find the most elegant solution that's most cost effective. And at the time, I didn't see that as Microsoft. Do I today? Well, I think things have changed. I understand the platform a bit better. So since then, I had a few other jobs. One of them landed me 12 months of doing a few things, including implementing CIS within Intune. So I got a little bit more acquainted. That was pretty cool. Saw Secure Score, still probably not totally understanding it, but more implementing CIS frameworks against endpoints for the CIS benchmarks. And that was pretty interesting. Then after that, working in another place and was able to actually set up a tenant from beginning and implement CIS benchmarks, but then also start to play with that secure score. And in playing with the secure score, I noticed how to leverage it and how to sort of go up in increasing manner. So this was a tenant that I first ended up sort of seeing high numbers in. So that previous tenant, I got somewhere in the ballpark of 85%, and that was a running tenant with a few users, multiple enterprise apps, and endpoints. But again, no on-prem, and that's going to be a key to this video, is there wasn't the cumbersome nature that comes with on-prem and legacy apps and legacy authentication and things like that that may cause a headache. And I've sort of seen in the LinkedIn posts that some people have said, that they had gripes around that sort of thing. Okay, fast forward to now. I'm running my own business, Ingest Services, doing consultancy and helping with implementation for Microsoft for small medium business within Australia, and I have my own tenant. And so I think, okay, well, I have responsibility for this now. It's not something that can just be, I'll do a little bit here, a little bit there, and I'm not going to wear the risk at the end of the day. It's something that has motivation behind it. Plus, I like doing things well, which, isn't a great thing when you see a score that says you can increase it. So I got to probably 80, 85% within 4 or 5 months, say, of tinkering. And then after that, sorry, I say a lie, I think I got there quicker. However, it stayed there for months. And then I got a bee in my bonnet after a conversation about Secure Score with a client, and they were maturing in that manner. And I went back and said, okay, what more can I do? At this time, only licensed for Business Premium plus the Defender Suite. So with that, I leveraged it, and I was able to get to, believe it or not, with only Microsoft Business Premium and the Defender Suite, 99.28%. Now, hear me when I say that, and don't forget it, that you can leverage pretty inexpensive licenses within your environment to get a high score. That's wild. That's really cool, because a lot of these forums will say something to the effect of, oh, you need an E5 license to get a high score. Well, in my experience, I was able to do it with Business Premium plus Defender Suite, 99.28%. So that was pretty recent. I want to say that's 6 to 7 months after having the business and after implementing things as you go. And then more recently, I got an E5 trial license just to see if I could push it. And I was able to. In fact, I posted a photo on LinkedIn that was 99.48%, and I believed at the time that was as far as I could take it. However, as you can now see, it's higher. It's 99.79%. Whew, that's a lot. That's a lot. So let's just take a break for a moment and sort of wind back to explain what Microsoft Secure Score is and what it is to me. So Microsoft Secure Score, in their own words, is a representation of your organization's security posture and your opportunity to improve it. What have I found it to be? Well, I found it to be security controls against 4 different main areas: your identity, your data, your device, and your apps. Now, why do I say security controls? Well, it lends itself to CIS Benchmarks, where you are looking at security controls of an environment. You're not necessarily looking at the GRC or, the threat hunting or proactive nature. You're sort of looking at a more defensive implementation of things that would improve least privilege and higher security of devices, data, and interconnected nature. I hope that made sense, but essentially you're looking at controls here. Yes, okay, you might disagree with me, but I think in essence, they're things that you can turn on and implement, so they're controls. Great. So what does that mean? Well, what it doesn't mean is that Microsoft Secure Score is a complete solution. And I don't think that Microsoft would say that it is. It's a metric to help with your security maturity along the way. Now, why do I say that? Well, there's been some comments and some conversation around the posts that I put on LinkedIn that say something to the effect of, yes, but blah, blah, or what about this? And one of them was around the vulnerability of software packages. And I mentioned that vulnerability of software packages actually hasn't been here because these are security controls. Does that mean that it shouldn't be done? No. You should have proper patch management. You should be looking at rotating on the shortest period of time that you can, so you don't have any 0 days, any known vulnerabilities. Obviously 0 days that are unknown. Yes, there's still 0 days, but I mean known first day offenders. Don't have them too long there, but we're talking about security controls here. We're not talking about patching every single thing. The other thing is WDAC, so Windows Defender Application Control. So your application whitelisting isn't here. Do I recommend that you should implement it? Well, I think that it's a general consensus around security frameworks, and definitely if you want to go for compliance, you're going to need some level of application whitelisting. And I'll put my hand up to say that I only recently sort of had a look and implemented that, and a great thing, go and have a look at the video that I created. WDAC includes Violet Hansen's app control manager, I believe. You can get it on the Windows App Store. It helps in creating the XML policies for WDAC, which is great. So again, not in Secure Score. Then there was another person that reached out that was sort of mentioning, and they had a lot of experience, and so I want to vet them in that. And they talked about, hey, well, you know, Secure Score can perhaps get misrepresented because it's not security operations, and I agree. I think security operations is something that's really good to tie alongside this. So if you can get your threat hunting, you can get your Sentinel, you can get your SIEM, you know, in on this, and a team that's doing, you know, incident response and active threat hunting. So you know your red team doing things as well. Like getting that proactive nature is a whole nother level alongside your Secure Score. So I hope I've made it clear that you can't go to this and think that this is everything. Okay, it's not. It's a metric that helps with security controls. Okay, a bit of a rant, but thanks for following me through with that one. So while we're on this page, I want to talk about a few things here. You can see under the categories, high percentage. Now the device is 100%. This is achievable. I actually achieved device 100% when I was at 99.28% with only Microsoft Business Premium plus the Defender Suite. Now, if I go to recommended actions, just for a moment, this is going to load all of those security controls, or the Microsoft Secure Score recommended actions. We change this filter to device. You can see there is a total of 104 controls that I believe you can implement. Now, little side note here, these two alternative mitigations have been implemented. At the time I clicked alternative mitigation was because I was putting it through a different means, and you can see here, do I write anything here? I might have not, so it's not even showing. However, oh no, here we go. Yeah, enforcing password requirements via compliance policy and Windows Hello for business configuration. So this was already enforced, however, it wasn't ticking over. And this is one of the things I have learned with Secure Score is it's not about necessarily having the control. It's about having the control done in a way that the check can balance. So what I want to say before getting into that more is the alternative mitigation was placed. However, then I later found how to implement it through Intune, through a policy that then checked it. And I don't see this change, but the reason I say this is that if I manage it and go and have a look at vulnerabilities management, it doesn't come up as a control anymore. And if we look at our history, we can see that it at one point gained it and regressed it. So it has happened. Write in the comments if you understand what I'm talking about and if you know why it's done that. But I can say that those two are implemented. So yeah, going back to what have I learned? So I've learned that you can implement 100%, but you need to do it in a way that Microsoft's checks are going to balance. So for instance, if you're implementing your minimum password length, 14 or more characters through a compliance policy or through Windows Hello for Business, in theory, that should check it. However, you need to enforce it through an Intune policy. I'm not going to show where that policy is now. What I'll say is definitely leverage Microsoft baselines and go and have a look at your different security framework benchmarks. So CIS, for those that are Australian, go and look at ASD blueprints. So I'll put the links in the description. They're really, really helpful. These are frameworks that help in implementing Intune policies. Excluding Microsoft baseline, which is just there out of the box. Go and watch my other video to see how to implement that. So you can see here there's 104 controls. Okay, most can be implemented using Microsoft baselines. That's it. Put your baselines in for your Windows 10 devices and for Defender. And once you've done that, you're going to notice a lot of these check off. Now, please take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is not a tutorial. This is what I've learned. So in your environment, it may be different because you may have on-prem, you may have legacy apps, you may have other use cases that might break. In a cloud-first environment where it's endpoints only and you're only accessing sort of first-party things, you're pretty safe to do a lot of this stuff. So by implementing Microsoft baselines, what that does is it will check off a lot of these, but some it won't, because Microsoft has created those baselines in a way that is a low touch or a low affecting area, and it goes for the low-hanging fruit, essentially, and it'll leave certain things. So one of the things that it does learn, again, a thing that I have learnt, is these two. So these two are attack surface reduction rules, and this is a thing that I learnt. So I had an attack reduction rule policy that was blocking both of these. However, the checks were not balancing. I didn't understand why until I went and looked in Intune, and I happened to be just going through the policies, and I was going through the baseline Microsoft baseline policies for Defender. And in Defender, the baseline, these two are set to audit. The annoying part about that is that when you have that as well as your ASR rule, there is a conflict, but it doesn't come up as a conflict. At least it didn't in my environment. So I had no reason to think that it wasn't being enforced as block. So if you are doing this, one of the things I've learned, not prescriptive, but one of the things I've learned is that if you want to block these two and gain the achieved points, you need to make sure that the baselines or any other policies aren't competing using audit and that they're set to block. So that was a cool thing. So 104 controls, they can be achieved using Business Premium as well as your Defender suite. You can see here a lot is just around turning things on, really. BitLocker, ASR rules so that things aren't injecting code into other processes. Tamper protection, so your Defender suite, are you turning Defender on? Are you enforcing good protections with Defender? Now, the other thing that I want to mention here is you're going to break a few things, a few accessibility areas. And I think in a corporate environment, there's good sense to break those things. So you're going to break UAC, all right? You're going to break your ability to escalate privilege in an unprivileged user account. So that just means that you can't jump onto someone's machine and think that you're going to put in your admin credentials if they're logged in. They have to log out and you have to log in with that admin privilege. UAC will then work. You'll have to authenticate and you're all good. But if you're an unprivileged user, that UAC prompt will be blocked. Now, in a world where everything is perfect and you have everything set up and enrolled through Intune, and you have all your apps within Intune, you're pretty well all right because you can roll out those apps through Intune, they'll roll out to the endpoints, and hey presto, you're all good. But what if you have an app that has to run in admin privilege? Well, then you've got an issue. Then you've got to think about how you're going to implement that. Do you put it on another machine and give them access through to that? Or do you put an exclusion? I haven't had to in this environment, but that's something that you have to consider as a touch point. So UAC is one of the big things. Next thing I want to say, it's probably less of a thing, but it might be a gripe for some people, is enabling Control-Alt-Delete. So interactive login, Control-Alt-Delete, it's a thing that a lot of people probably know from server time. However, it's something that you will turn on with this. So when you log in, you're going to have to Control-Alt-Delete before you can log in. Now, if you're used to Windows Hello and just sort of looking at your screen, it's just one extra step. Okay, so look, believe me, I know they sound silly and they sound small, but these are the things that probably are going to annoy people the most, especially end users in a corporate environment. So UAC and your Control-Alt-Delete. Now, there's other things, I guess, autoplay, do you need that? Well, risk over usability. Do you want it to just work, or do you want to have an extra process? But I think a lot of these are pretty reasonable unless you have custom scenarios, which I betcha people are listening going, well, what scenario isn't custom in a corporate environment that has legacy this, legacy that? I understand. Now, the next thing that I learned within SecureScore on that point is that not everything has to be implemented. See, Microsoft has, in their wisdom, no puns intended, I actually like Microsoft, they have gone ahead and given us the opportunity to have other options other than completing. So if I were to open this up, and some of you may know this and some of you may not, you can click your action plan, edit status and action plan, and you have a few options. So completed is obviously grayed out because that's automated. It's going to do the check, it's going to balance, it's going to say completed. Next is to address. So this could be something like, we have this legacy app that needs XYZ and it's going to be decommissioned in a year. Well, set it to address. You're not going to gain the points, but at least when you come in here, you're not going to have it unchecked at all and not even mentioned. Planned, sorry, I'm going to just say planned is what I just said. To address is to leave it default. Risk accepted in, for instance, this scenario, this is all about, are we going to be putting identity protection against all users with the risk policy that has an automated implementation of requiring MFA or password change, while Microsoft elsewhere recommends that you always have a break glass account. And in keeping with that, this has a risk accepted, remaining user is a break glass account. So there's going to be different things like that. Now these two here are going to be really interesting. So resolved through a third party or resolved through an alternative mitigation do earn points. And this is awesome because we're not all going to be Microsoft only shops. Going back to when I was an MSP, I had a lot of other third party tools that were doing the same, similar, better or worse than Microsoft. So here I could say alternative mitigation, I could give a reason, and I'll gain those points there as well. So I think this is really good, and I feel like the people in general don't quite understand that secure score isn't just an all or none, achieve it or don't. It is a maturity metric that you can follow along with, and you can actually gain points with alternative third-party or alternative mitigations. And Microsoft isn't tying your hands into requiring an E5 subscription. So really cool. I'll just throw it out there. If you had Sentinel-1 and you were doing things through there for your endpoint, you might find that you can have an alternative mitigation third party for a lot of different things. Alternative mitigation might be if you don't have a particular thing, but you found another way to mitigate it. So I'll show you some of those that I have. If we go back to here, and you can see I've got a few for alternative mitigations. So you can see here, first one is to have Defender for Identity deployed on a domain controller. Well, I don't have any domain controllers because there's no on-prem, it's cloud first. So the alternative mitigation here is do not have on-premise infrastructure and not needing to address this. Fair. Awesome. I've spoken about these two. Last is this one, which is in essence, you're extending the sensitivity labels to things other than first-party Microsoft. So AWS, includes Azure. So anything other than Microsoft 365. So AWS, Azure, GCP, things like this. Again, don't have it, so don't need it in my address. So I say there is no additional cloud data source to onboard to Purview's data map, and it continues. And I achieve those points. That's great. But not everything can be done that way. Some things need risk accepted. And one of them I have here, which I was talking about before, is around that break glass account. Another one might be something like going the extra mile and deploying a log collector to discover shadow IT activity. Well, you could say you have an alternative mitigation and you could be using Cloud App Discovery. Go watch that if you haven't. Basically throw out your old DNS filter and use Cloud App Discovery and all the policies of sanctioning and unsanctioning. But needless to say, this is another measure on top that you can deploy a Docker container that basically you send your logs of your firewall to, and then that gets ingested into, I believe it's Cloud App Discovery. Okay, it says Cloud App Catalog. And then that can show you your purview or your view over the apps that might be shadow IT in your environment. So that's something that I don't have an alternative mitigation. However, it's a risk accepted given that all devices are currently enrolled to Intune and MDE with Cloud App Discovery set up. So I can't truly say that there's an alternative mitigation, therefore can't earn the point. So that's kind of like what I've learned. I don't know if I've covered enough in that, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video. I'll see how this one goes. I'll see if it was informative, see if it gets good reception, if people actually enjoy this. Yeah, so 99.79% in, I want to say 7-8 months of running this tenant. This computer that's recording this is one of the joined devices. So from a usability standpoint, I can do everything I need. I've got OBS running currently. I can do emails. I can do my Office suite. I can surf the net. I can complete work tasks. I can even listen to Apple Music and all of these things. I want to say one last thing, addition outside of all of this sort of conversation, and that's going to be around a really cool little cherry on the top for achieving this score. And that's going to be around current license score. So I found this really, really quite funny. So Microsoft says that the current license score that is achievable for this tenant is 99.71%. However, I have exceeded it at 99.79%. If you didn't catch it already, I have 2 risk accepted, and I have 4 alternative mitigations. Everything else is complete. You can see the receipts here. It's working. I'm running it on this computer. I'm recording this video on the computer that is enrolled. Everything's working. So that's really cool. Going above what is the current license score. Nuts. And you can see organizations of similar level are lower. Now, here are some cool resources that I'm going to put in the comments. And the first one that I'm going to put is the ASD blueprint. So for us in Australia, we have the Australian Signal Directorate. They are sort of like the cyber security of the Australian government, if you will, but also overarching Australia. And they provided this, which is just so great, and it has helped immensely. So they've created their configuration policies for edge hardening, office hardening, the like, Windows hardening, iOS, iPadOS, all here. There's more as well. Like even if you wanted to go into Purview, you can go to their data loss prevention, and you can see their policies for data loss prevention, a whole 9 yards. So definitely use this. Other than that, I think the CIS benchmarks are good. I think that they break a lot more than what Secure Score does, and they go beyond what Secure Score does. But you can see here, if I were to go to operating systems and then Microsoft Intune for Microsoft Windows, they have a benchmark there. Bear in mind, be ready. It's 900 pages long, and that's just for the Windows operating system. Then you've got to consider Edge, and you've got to consider any other applications that you're running, but they are very in-depth. When you go through them, definitely pay attention to what you're implementing, because it's not always going to be concurrent for what you want in your environment. It also might be counterproductive. So that one, I want to say, be wary. It's different to Secure Score. Lastly, I want to also do a shout out to Violet Hansen. She also goes by HotCakeX. She has a whole write-up on her tool, which is, again, App Control Manager, which helps with WDAC. But what is really cool is she has Intune files. And in the Intune files, she has a few hardening profiles. So these are, honestly, probably this and this, as well as Microsoft baselines, is the biggest heavy hitter in implementing this. CIS Benchmarks gave me context to implementation against Intune, sort of cut my teeth on that. But I want to say this are primarily, and then Microsoft Learn. So Microsoft Learn, so you've got the SC200, and also I want to take special note of a newer one, which is the SC401, which is all about Purview. And that's going to help with your sensitivity labels, understanding that, as well as auto labeling and your data loss prevention. So these two. And if you want to touch on Entra, definitely go have a look at Identity and Access Administrator Associate. That's really helpful to learn about implementing security controls within your Entra ID tenant. So for your users, IAM, Identity Access Management. So these three, for learning and understanding what you're implementing, and for help along the implementation, I would say leverage. If you're not Australian, have a look at it. I think a lot of it's going to be very relevant to you with their hardening policies. They're pretty transient. I think they'll help. And then next is going to be HotCakeX. Have a look at just the GitHub repo is very helpful. It's dense with information, as well as some of these Intune files. Go have a look at CIS if you want to get into 900 pages of in-depth implementation and go beyond Secure Score in security controls. Again, just controls. They do talk a little bit about, I believe they have some areas that may touch on policy. I could be corrected there. I think a lot of their benchmarks are just going to be around controls, and then leverage the Learn platform. So that's kind of it from me. Thank you for watching. This is a very long format video, but I hope that it's helped. If you have any questions about this, implementing Secure Score, anything to help along the way, just leave a message. Leave a message down in the comments. I'll try to get back to it. And yeah, until then, I want to say we need to get better at implementing security maturity. We shouldn't be scared of metrics like secure score. We should leverage them, and we shouldn't think that we're not doing well if we're not at 99%. We should be looking at it as a journey. So if we're at 45% today, are we going to get to 45.2 tomorrow? See this as an encouragement. Don't see this as an indictment or prescription or reason to feel bad. No, see it as it is achievable. If I can do it in a cloud-first environment that's business running every day, then you too can do it. It may look a little different. If you're going to have on-prem, you're going to have legacy apps, well, it's going to take a bit of time. But find the way to make that sort of least privilege environment to have the least amount of risk, and the risk that you do have that's risk accepted. Use this metric. Don't be scared of it. Reach out if you need any help or you need any assistance or you have any questions. And let me know in the comments if you have any desire to hear more about this or have any questions that I haven't answered. I'd be happy to create another video to follow this up. But until then, I'm going to say goodbye, and thanks so much for watching.